First off, can you make it clear what ABS mission is?
It's very, very straightforward. It is to help Americans with any and all kinds of needs and others. The others generally start with their family members, wives and children and the like, and then spreads out. We actually, in numbers, serve probably 65 to 70% Mexicans in actual service to a person, and the other 30-35 are Americans. But our service is more heavily concentrated on Americans who basically, in some way, need assistance.
Okay, that's excellent. And how did you came to be on ABS?
I've always been involved with the American community. I was the head of the Girl Guide, Girl Scout group for foreigners, which the largest part was Americans and British also, but it was French, Israeli, and things like that. And there was a separate district for that. And the American Society, very involved with the different churches and the school, the American school, and just that was part of being an American in Mexico City. In the 1990s, I had a very good friend who said, no, you should be involved with the American Benevolent as well. And I did, I think it was 1996, I became actively involved. I'd always been a member, but I became actively involved. I became the treasurer in about 2003, and when circumstances happened that we didn't have someone filling the executive director position, I did it for almost a year as a volunteer, and then kind of said, well, if I'm going to get up early enough to be there at 9 o'clock every morning, I think that we should form it.
When dealing with the Mexican government, what do you think is the most important factor as an association?
Very, very good professional help.
Okay. Dealing with Hacienda, dealing with...
The whole thing, and especially now with the privacy, not so much privacy and the very, very much so the money laundering. When you may not want to include this, but this was a very interesting thing. When Peña Nieto was about to become president, and the ABS was approached just to talk about how you felt about it and the like. And as I just didn't want to do it off the top of the head. I contacted about 5 different business people about what it was like for them to the relationship between the United States and Mexico, and what they were looking for the new president and everything. And we'd talk and we'd say this and everything, and yes, the fear, and yes, the security. And almost all 5 of them, at the tail end of the conversation, the word they used was transparency. That must be dealt with for Mexico to go forward at the rate or possibility. That was what they felt, and these were top.
And on the other hand, when dealing with the USA government, what is the most important factor?
Well, most of our dealings are Americans with problems, and so it could be a small problem about how do I register my child, how do I get a passport, or what's known as the federal benefits, which can be the Veterans Administration or the Social Security. We have an excellent relationship that has been worked on and built up by both sides, so that right now there is a really total confidence. We can go and ask and know that we will get the information and support with the proper documentation and the privacy considerations and everything, and they know that they can come to us. We had an incident just this past Monday where a woman came to Mexico. She thought that she was going to be able to get her, I think it's a veteran's pension, and that didn't happen. I don't know the details. And she basically didn't have a cent. She was living in this Salvation Army shelter, woman's shelter, and the embassy called and said, "Can you help?" And so we gave her enough money to get to the States, to her point of origin, so she could go to the bank and start getting her pension. But she literally didn't have money to eat or to anything. So that's the interesting ones. People who are stuck here don't need to get back to the States and the like. The others can just be anything. We have a certain number of youth, let's say in their 20s, maybe going into the mid-30s, who were born in Mexico, taken to the States very, very young, never nationalized or anything, have lived the American life, speak English much, much better than Spanish if they even speak it, and now they get involved on the, with immigration, get deported here. Some of them don't even know where they were born, especially if the parents are not part of their lives anymore, and they're in no man's land. So we help them as best we can. It is an interesting population. Another interesting population are the Mexicans who went to the States to work, and then, if you remember, we've been having this reverse immigration. Well, they're coming back to the Mexico that they left in many respects, so they're still working in milpas and basically very basic kind of jobs. But their children are U.S. citizens. Their babies are up to, I don't know, the oldest we helped was about 16. It's estimated that there's 100 to 300,000 children that are in this category, but they don't have the papers to get into school here in Mexico. They are now illegal immigrants in their cultural country. Their parents are Mexican culturally, but they can say legally they're U.S. citizens. So that's it. And although we can't take that on, we've been working with some organizations, and we have helped in unusual cases. We've helped now maybe 30 or so. Well, the U.S. Embassy, they are very helpful, especially about trying to get the process going, because the process consists of certifying the U.S. Birth certificate, then having it apostillado, then it's got to be translated, then you start the Mexican side of it, so that they can end up with a Mexican nationality because of their parents, and start school. And the big thing is they can't get into school.
Okay.
They don't have the documentation to get. And the famous 0 to 7, 7 to 13, one semester. Not being
in this scenario, how do you think society sees ABS being an American-founded association but being legally Mexican?
I don't think many people are really aware of it. I think we're very balanced, so it's not really an issue. We participate very much in all the kinds of things that involve what's here called adultos mayores, seniors. we work on several different levels. The most confidential, of course, are the people that we actually do something for in a way, which right now to this very day consists of buying food, sending a doctor, sending somebody to clean the apartment, cooking so he's in his 80s, so he can survive.
Sure.
So that's that part. Then we have both the cemetery and the bookstore that gives us contact to a huge Mexican population, and we are serving them. The cemeteries is probably 90% Mexican. Americans are buried there, but it serves Mexico City, and the bookstore is considered a community service rather than really.
Do you consider associations and help should have no international limits, or do you think that it's a little bit more complicated than that?
Well, of course it's more complicated, but a lot of it. The many very wonderful organizations all have to operate within the confines of what they can do. Sometimes an organization is dealing, let's say, with children with AIDS, and they make affiliations with international organizations, but the requirements, especially if it's European and the United States, isn't the way things are in Mexico. So there can be tension and like they still, day by day, minute by minute, must do their job, no matter what about the affiliation. But it can be difficult for them to be as good as the international world would like them to be. It's a lot of, well, why don't you, or why can't you, or things like that. And again, a lot of compassion and love has to come into that one, to realize the depth of the needs in Mexico and not get hung up on the way it's done someplace else outside of Mexico.